The following is for information purposes only and should not be considered investment advice. All opinions and views expressed by the contributors to this podcast are in a personal capacity only. They do not represent the views of Progressive Equity Research or any other organisation mentioned in this podcast.
Okay, so Thursday, the 12th of December, nearly there for Christmas. The news this week's been dominated by Syria. But Jeremy, is there anything else going on that you think we should talk about?
Well, certainly Syria's been dominating the headlines, but I think it's reflective of the changing shape of the general world order, and it just increases sort of uncertainty surrounding countries like Iran following setbacks to Hezbollah, and now the collapse of the Ashtead regime in Syria. Where we're at here is that it's a win for Turkey and a win for Israel, but the big uncertainty is we're really yet to know what stance the newly emerging Syrian regime will take on the world stage. The other thing to say is that for all this, there's not been a really significant response in the normal fear gauges. You know, the dollar is up, not for reasons to do with heightened uncertainty, but because of the Trump trade, and it's still in full swing.
Yes.
But before we get on and talk about that, I think there's some interesting things elsewhere. What China's Politburo said this week, that it would in future embrace a moderately loose monetary policy following some pretty sluggish inflation data from China this week, seems to indicate that the Chinese leadership are moving into a more controlling role of the performance of the economy, and that they're considering allowing the yuan, the renminbi, to weaken as they brace for the higher tariff regime under a second Trump presidency. So I think a theme is around the world at the moment is, look sharp, President Trump's coming, we need to get our act together.
All right. So the Chinese are trying to devalue their exports before Trump puts a tariff on top of them.
Yeah.
Okay. So China looking to keep interest rates low or reduce them. What about the US? What are you hearing from the States?
Well, we've had measures of inflation for last month. And meanwhile, the Fed is widely expected to continue to cut rates next week, just as the ECB has done today, as expected. But I think there are growing doubts around all this of the Fed's ability to bring inflation down to its targeted 2%. The rate it's just reported has gone back up to 2.7% amidst capital markets that are full of animal spirits. The risk assets are booming. Very strong moves on NASDAQ and very strong moves in cryptocurrencies, particularly Bitcoin. And I think the longer term outlook for inflation, government debt and bond yields are tricky, to say the least. Retail investors in the US or investors into US markets seem to be ignoring the underlying issue in the bond market and the booming government deficits. It's almost like they've assumed that Elon has done the job at the Department of Government Efficiency already, and that is definitely not the case.
No, there's a huge amount of risk as they try and cut that spend without damaging the economy, and whether they even get all of it through, I suppose, is debatable as well, isn't it?
Well, I think there's going to be a real political fight back. And I think when that becomes apparent, could be the moment that some of the chickens come home to roost for some of these risk assets.
Okay. But until that day, everything just has kept going up.
Well, yeah. And, US markets have been driving everything else. And, things like the disappearance of Syria as a sovereign state, it plays second fiddle at times like this, I'm afraid. Everything else is bowing down to the Trump trade, the level of the dollar and the 10-year benchmark treasury yield. These are the key determinants now of the financial conditions for the rest of the world, including the UK. And I'd say within that context of everything else that's going on in the wider world, the value of the pound is holding its ground. It's held up well in a week where the euro and the yen have both weakened against the dollar. And our 10-year gilt yield seems to be moving pretty well in lockstep with the equivalent treasury yield. So the UK is in an okay place in the context of these changes that are taking place. But everybody's trying to get their house in order for a visit from Donald. Surely must be just a coincidence that this week Starmer and Reeves seem to be doing their own sort of versions of DOGE-lite, with Starmer sort of first accusing Whitehall of lounging in a tepid bath of managed decline, as he described it, before saying that what he actually meant was that the UK civil service is the envy of the world. So we don't really know where he stands, obviously. So anyway.
You're right. So, we'll see how that all pans out when Donald does grace us all with his undivided attentions in the new year. What else have you seen in the UK? I mean, I can talk a little bit about some of the progressive news, and then we should maybe chat about some other stocks as well. But on the progressive front, we've had a couple of bits of news, mainly from the building construction sector this week. We've had Springfield, the Scottish house builder, and Van Elle, who are more sort of groundworks and engineering, sort of, early phases of building projects. Springfield's had an H1 trading update to November, and Van Elle had a trading update to the end of October. So they're both really quite timely, quite recent trading periods that they're talking about. And they're both talking about more optimism and positivity for 2025. And it's good to see that area where the Labour government has been very clear with their ambitions, the 1.5 million houses across the Parliament, they're really trying to get that going. And the sector is already seeing some positivity and enhanced expectations on the back of that. So hopefully 2025 will show the benefit of that change. What other stocks have caught your eye this week? Anything in particular?
Well, I think probably the big news for the UK market was the plans for Ashtead, the plant rental business, to seek its primary listing in the US, which removes a real heavyweight £28 billion market cap company from the UK. And I think it's also noticeable that this was a business that 25, 30 years ago, this was a company that was on the verge of bankruptcy. It's worked its way through being a micro cap, small cap, mid cap, large cap, now no cap on the UK market. So that's a sad event for the London market. Sort of in a similar vein, we've seen Games Workshop, which is now a FTSE 100 company, emerge from nowhere. It's this week agreed its long-running content deal that it's been negotiating with Amazon to adapt its Warhammer 40,000 universe into a film and television series. But Games Workshop has really risen without trace from a single shop in Hammersmith 30 odd years ago to being one of the 100 largest companies in the UK without ever having to raise capital on the way, which is an amazing achievement.
Well, let's hope we hold on to Games Workshop, even if we haven't managed to keep Ashtead as a primarily listed UK business. So, yeah, okay.
Elsewhere, I noticed probably one of the more controversial stocks in the UK small mid-cap space is Alphawave, which is a semiconductor stock. I think technically it's got a good reputation in the industry, so I gather. But as a UK stock market entrant, it's had a checkered history, largely a Canadian-based management team with successful track records elsewhere in the semiconductor industry, but has had a very up and down relationship. I mean, the semiconductor industry is volatile at the best of times. Anyway, this week, Alphawave has decided to issue some $150 million convertible bond issue to finance ongoing growth plans. Now, this sort of answered a question that I think the bears of this stock has had for a while, that it needed to raise more money. It was a bit overstretched financially, which doesn't help when your underlying business is serving such a volatile industry. But I think it's an interesting development. They got the deal away. They raised a few eyebrows because in the process, they had an equity offering to allow some of the buyers of the convertible debt to go short of the underlying equity, which makes perfect sense if you're a bond investor looking to finance a business like Alphawave. But it adds a layer of complexity, shall we say, to an already volatile and complex story. So I don't think the controversy around Alphawave is going away quickly, but I think it remains a fascinating business all the same.
Certainly one to keep an eye on, because if they can deliver, then it could be really interesting. But as you say, they've had a certainly mixed history in the relatively short time that they've been listed. So one certainly to keep an eye on. Okay.
But one of the other issues that's been apparent in the mid-cap space impacting some of the banks, people like Close Brothers, has been this ongoing legal and regulatory issue scrutiny around motor finance. We had an update from S&U, which has one of its two key subsidiaries in the motor finance space. And it, as unsurprisingly, said that its collections had remained low and the impairments to its loan book had continued to run at higher levels than expected. And it's just further evidence that the market has taken fright from some of these companies like S&U and Close Brothers and others. And Close Brothers particularly seems to have been hit very hard. They've had to sell their asset management business in anticipation of the issues that are going to come up around reparations for these perceived or alleged regulatory mishaps that the industry has been under. I think this is an interesting opportunity for value investors, arguably, to make money from, because the market typically overreacts in these sort of situations. One obviously needs to do your own research and all that good stuff, but I think this is an interesting opportunity. And what do you know, this week, some of the companies were given leave by the courts to appeal to some of these judgments this week. And we had a big intraday move, I think it was yesterday, in Close Brothers. It's petered out, but I think it might just indicate that we're in the early stages, at least, of trying to understand what the actual quantum of this liability is for the industry.
You're absolutely right. The market can overreact quite aggressively, especially in a situation where you've got regulatory activity is always concerning, especially in a space where you've got some quite big numbers banding around, and it's very difficult to quantify what the impact might be because there's no easy way to do a quick back of the envelope calculation on what it's likely to be because the numbers themselves are so large and the regulator can take a really quite strong view if they're inclined to do that. So the parameters are quite difficult to nail down. So yeah, the market does react very badly. But as you say, even a small amount of good news can see prices recover really pretty quickly.
All I would say is that behavioral economics or behavioral finance tells you that people are twice as fearful about losing money as they are feeling good about making money. So there's an asymmetry on fear and greed. That is just an evolutionary fact. And I think when the music has stopped here, we will find an opportunity where we have overreacted.
Just trying to avoid catching that falling knife. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. A lot going on in the UK market this past week. And what do you think is coming up next week?
It seems to be mainly about rate decisions. Obviously, we had the ECB rate cut today. Tomorrow, we've got UK GDP data for October, which is expected to show an improvement from September's small decline. So expect some headlines if that doesn't fall into place. Monday next week, we get some Chinese production data, which should perhaps clarify the need for the expected further stimulus measures coming out of China. Wednesday next week, we get UK inflation data for November, which is expected to be unchanged at around 2.3%. It's notable that the UK inflation is expected to remain now below that for the US. And although the bases of measurement are not obviously exactly comparable, it would be good to see that UK rate remain below the US level for the next few months. But I think the big stuff next week is going to be around rate decisions. We get the Fed rate decision, and the consensus expectation is for a further 25 basis points cut to 4.5%. And then we get the Bank of Japan's rate decision, which as always has the element of risk and surprise. The mood music is that they want to raise rates, but I think they're under pressure from Washington / the IMF not to upset the apple cart like they did in the summer. But, I think it's quite within the realms of possibility that we get up to a 25 basis points rise in Japan, which from 25 basis points to 50 basis points would potentially be that upset. So
big change. Yeah. If that's what they do. Yeah. Okay.
We get the UK rate decision Thursday, which slightly surprised actually to see that most people seem to think that things will be left unchanged, won't be moving rates this time round. But let's see how that plays out. But all about inflation and interest rates next week.
Okay, great. Well, there's a lot there. And there's plenty of macro information to get our teeth into this time next week. So great. Good to catch up, Jeremy. Thanks for your time once again. And we'll chat next week.
Okay, see you then.
Talk to you then.
Bye.
Brought to you by Progressive Equity.